Hello everyone! Today, I've decided to start a series of videos where I do a run-through of my OC's life and how they would affect the canon story if they existed. And of course I had to start with, in my opinion, my most well-written and oldest OC, Kumiko Koyama, also known as Kumiko Enoshima. I got this idea because I made a video series about Kumiko's life. However, these videos consisted of random scenes and a song in the background with no context in the description. So I want a more solid video explaining her life. I may make more of these for different characters, or just split up Kumiko into multiple episodes since she has experienced a lot. Now for the warnings. This will contain major spoilers for all of Danganronpa, minus Killer Killer, B3 and character-specific novels. If you can't handle the gore and triggering aspects of the Danganronpa franchise, don't watch this video as topics like murder will be mentioned. Also, if you couldn't tell by her last name, Kumiko is related to the canon characters Junko and Mukuro, who don't have confirmed backstories or childhoods, so I had to improvise while writing hers. If you have your own headcanon on Junko's upbringing, then please ignore that section of the video. I must also clarify that I do not have other Danganronpa OCs, but instead I have written characters for other franchises. The ones that are the most developed are my Demon Slayer OC, my Master Detectives Archives, Raincoat OC, and my Hero Academia OC. So if you would like to hear about them, let me know. Now let's start. Kumiko was born as the first daughter of a wealthy couple. She was not Togami Corp levels rich, nor was she from a slightly well-paid family like Hajime. Her parents were sort of in between those two levels of richness. Her parents, Yoko Enoshima and Mikino Enoshima, both had jobs related to the entertainment industry and had high hopes for Kumiko's future success. This led to Kumiko having a close relationship with her parents. Kumiko was naturally gifted as a child, but not in the way her parents expected, and such. Kumiko grew up thinking she was normal. You see, Kumiko was born with advanced analytical ability. With certain observations, she could tell what a person cared about without talking to them. This made her able to predict the thoughts of those around her and how they would act. Her only weakness was understanding others' emotions because she thought so analytically. Kumiko was born on the 9th of April, and the year she turned 1, her happy family were preparing for the festive holiday Christmas. That year, on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve, her two younger sisters were born. Mukuro Ikusaba, called Mukuro Enoshima at the time, and Junko Enoshima were twins and the two younger sisters of Kumiko. She cared deeply for them both and looked after them even though she was only a year older. Little did she know that Junko, the youngest of the three sisters, had the same analytical prowess that she possessed. However, Junko's was much more developed. She could predict anything, even people's emotions, not to mention her IQ was off the charts from birth. While Mukuro and Kumiko had a fairly normal relationship, Kumiko was a bit wary of Junko. Kumiko could sense that Junko had the same ability as her, and when Kumiko tried to analyze her, all she could detect was that her sister was bored with the world and craved despair more than anything. However, Kumiko tried her best to ignore this and attempted to give Junko something to entertain her other than hope and despair. This led to her spending more time with Junko than anyone else in her family, even her parents. Everything was mostly normal with their family. They never felt the need to want something due to their parents' wealth. But everything went south when Kumiko turned 7 and the twins were 6. They were in kindergarten, and Junko had finally grown bored with the world. And so, Junko took the life of her kindergarten best friend with a kitchen knife she stole from their house. Kumiko, who had been keeping a keen eye on Junko, almost immediately figured out she was the murderer. However, she didn't tell the police because she knew they wouldn't believe her. Kumiko then kept Junko under her surveillance for the next 3 years. Kumiko foiled Junko's plans to commit other murders only for Junko to find a way around it and secretly shove it in her face. Around the time Kumiko was 10, Junko started to grow tired of Kumiko's constant interference with her plans. Although Junko was entertained by her sometimes successful attempts at stopping her, she often repeated the same tactics while doing so, which became easy to predict for Junko. In order to scare Kumiko off, Junko started manipulating Mukuro into being her assistant and loyal helper. Then Junko convinced her and Mukuro to run away from home, and the two were homeless for 3 months. Their parents eventually found them, and when they finally returned home, Kumiko saw how Junko was controlling Mukuro and realized how deep the situation truly was. Things escalated from there as Junko started messing with Kumiko's train of thought as well, whilst tricking her into thinking she was immune to it. This lasted for 2 years. When Kumiko was 12, she and her family went on holiday to Europe. Here, Kumiko tried to convince her parents that Junko needs professional help and revealed all of Junko's crimes to them. But just like Kumiko predicted, her parents didn't believe her and accused Kumiko of being the one who needed help. Her father tried to reason with her while her mother went to get her sisters out of the room. At this moment, Kumiko was overwhelmed with despair and Junko's manipulation and snapped. She grabbed a nearby pair of scissors and attacked her father, stabbing him until he stopped moving. Her mother tried to pull her off of Mikino, but Kumiko just turned on her and stabbed her as well, killing her with 2 blows. Junko then helped Kumiko cover up the crime and dispose of the bodies, with Kumiko being compliant because of her despair-trapped mental state Junko had put her in. This deeply traumatized Mukuro, who was forced to watch and decided to use their trip to Europe as a chance to run away. Mukuro had always had a fascination with the military, and so she changed her last name to Ikusaba and joined a mercenary group called Fenrir. This was all a part of Junko's plan to fill the world with despair, as she was counting on having a loyal ally who was a good fighter and another who was as good as her at analyzing. Kumiko and Junko managed to make their way home to Japan, where on the way they met Yasuke Matsuda, who was also from Japan. This was another fortunate event for Junko as Yasuke was studying the human brain, and she slowly developed a twisted love and admiration for him, which he returned back. Without their parents, Kumiko and Junko became homeless, which Junko had been secretly preparing for. Because of this, the two hung around Yasuke's house, which was near a beach. They would build sand castles together before pretending to go home. A year later, Junko found a way to gain access to her and Kumiko's inheritance from their parents, and the two gained a fair sum of money. Junko used this money to start a career in fashion magazines, using her analysis to predict popular fashion trends and dress accordingly. Meanwhile, Kumiko and Junko attended a middle school. Kumiko would even accompany Junko to her fashion shoots, and the two were known as the Kagairu sisters. This didn't last long though, as Kumiko realized her constant involvement with Junko was making her go insane. Kumiko secretly had an ulterior motive for doing this. She joined the debate club to gain the skills necessary to convince Junko to give up her destructive search for ultimate despair. So she contributed a lot to the club. She also befriended all of the members who slowly broke her out of the puppet-like mental state Junko had trapped her in. Kumiko became extremely close to the president of the debate club, which Junko did not like at all. Kumiko then became a debate prodigy, winning contests and going on school trips with the club, until Junko interfered again. She told Kumiko that she was disappointed with the amount of despair Kumiko had been causing for herself and others. This greatly terrified Kumiko, who feared what Junko would do. She knew that Junko would make an attempt on the debate club president's life and couldn't stop it from happening. So she decided to do something that would impress Junko more than anything. She chose to kill the debate club president before Junko had the chance to do it herself. Kumiko managed to do this by skipping class with the president and killing him once no one was around, or so she thought. Junko had been secretly recording her and threatened to send the whole school the video of her killing a student. Kumiko then promised that she would never try to betray Junko again if she didn't send the video. However, Junko agreed to these terms only to send the video anyway. Kumiko panicked, and instead of pleading with Junko like her younger sister had planned, Kumiko sprinted out of the crime scene and began massacring everyone in the school, including the teachers. This act inspired Junko's despair, so she set half of it on fire in order to aid her sister. The rush of killing so many people brought back Kumiko's crave for despair, and the two sisters left the burning building after removing themselves from the school's files. Junko referred to the incident as sibling bonding before stabbing Kumiko from behind. A few years later, Kumiko and Junko attended a high school called Gunma Prefectural Shibatani High School. During Kumiko's first year there, she was scouted as the ultimate debater or super high school level disputer by Hope's Peak Academy. Surprisingly, Junko allowed Kumiko to join the school, and Kumiko believed that Junko had turned over a new leaf in her life. However, these assumptions were false, completely wrong in every way. and Junko couldn't wait for her to find out her true intentions.